Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear students, hope you are doing fine. In the series of stories of prophets, today we are going to discuss Prophet Yousuf alayhi salatu wasalam, and possibly it is part 2. And in the part first, we discussed various aspects of the story of Hazrat Yousuf alayhi salatu wasalam, and how Zulaikha was inclined towards Yousuf alayhi salatu wasalam, and how Yousuf denied the temptation of Zulaikha. And when Zulaikha realized that Yousuf alayhi salatu wasalam is not a man who is going to fall into her trap, she falsely accused Yousuf alayhi salatu wasalam. So Yusuf's refusal heightened the passion of Zulaikha. And Quran goes on, as we find in the Quran, that Zulaikha closed the door for evil intention, and Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam was caught in a very grim situation. And when Zulaikha tried to seduce her, Yusuf moved toward the door to escape, and Zulaikha ran after him and caught hold of his shirt. And in this struggle, she tore his shirt. And in this ensuing, they both reached to the door. Door was closed, but it all of a sudden opened, and they saw that at the door there was Zulaikha's husband. And when Zulaikha saw her husband at the door, she was naturally disturbed. He felt a very precarious situation. As the Quran says, so they raced with one another to the door, and she tore his shirt from back. They both found her lord, her husband, at the door. When Zulaikha saw her husband at the door, she at once changed her tune, showed the torn shirt, and accused Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam of evil intent. Quran says that when Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam didn't budge an inch to Zulaikha, and Zulaikha accused Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam of molestation. Quran goes on to saying that when she saw her husband and finding in a very precarious situation, and she said, "What is the recompense punishment for him who intended an evil design against your wife, except he be put in prison or a painful torment?" She was now accusing Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam of molesting her and giving an impression that she was innocent. After the husband questioned his wife and Yusuf, he consulted a person who was there, and the person was an honest man, wise man, who listened to both of the countess and gave his opinion, which Quran says that if the shirt was torn at the back, then it means Zulaikha had tried to seduce him. If the shirt was torn at the front, it means that he had tried to seduce her. And Aziz Misr looked at it and found that shirt was torn at the back. The evidence was clear that Zulaikha was guilty. The disappointed Aziz apologized to Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam for his wife's evil intent, and he also instructed her to beg Yusuf's forgiveness for accusing him falsely. This story spread in the town that Zuleika was loving a slave, young man, and she was ridiculed by the people, by the women. And this incident, like this, cannot remain hidden from the people in a house where there are servants, which is the house of the chief minister's wife, and the story spread. Women began to see her behavior as scandalous. Quran goes on to say, the wife of Al-Aziz is seeking to seduce her slave young man. Indeed, she loves him violently. Verily, we see her in plain error. This has been the story that the women where women they saw that Zuleika is loving a slave young man. Zuleika's plan to regain her reputation. This gossip naturally distressed Zuleika. She honestly believed that it was not easy for any woman to resist a man as handsome as Joseph. To prove her helplessness, she planned to subject the women to the same temptation she faced. She invited them to a lavish banquet. No one so invited would want to miss the honor of dining with the chief minister's wife. Besides, they secretly harbored the desire to meet the handsome Yusuf face to face. So, Zuleika started and invited them to this lavish banquet ceremonial meal, and it was filled with enjoyment, and there were fruits which were to be cut by a knife which was given to every woman. And Zuleika opened the topic that I have heard of those who say I have fallen in love with the young Hebrew man Yusuf. And silence fell upon the banquet. She said while giving orders for the fruit to be served, I admit that he is a charming fellow. I do not deny that I love him. I have loved him for a long time. And all of a sudden, Zuleika calls Yusuf والسلام, by his name, and when he raised it, says the guests were astonished, and instead of cutting the fruit, they cut their palms absent-mindedly, without feeling that they had cut them. And the ladies said, they whispered that this is not a man, this is not a mortal being, this is an angel. This is an angel. And Zuleika was able to convince them, this is a one for whom I have been blamed. I do not deny that I tempted him. You have been enchanted by Yusuf, and see what has happened to your hands. I have tempted him, and if he does not do what I want for him, he shall be imprisoned. As the Quran says, the woman's reaction that so when she heard of their accusation, she sent for them a prepared banquet for them. She gave each of them a knife to cut the foodstuff with, and said to Yusuf, come out before them. Then when they saw him, they exalted him at his beauty, and in their astonishment cut their hands. They said, how perfect is Allah, or Allah forbid, no man is this. This is none other than a noble angel. She said, this is the young man about whom you did blame me for his love, and I did seek to seduce him, but he refused. And now, if he refuses to obey my order, he shall certainly be cast into prison and will be one of who are disgraced. This is the Quranic version of the account, the Quranic version which the story goes on to say. And finding this, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam said to Lord, O my Lord, prison is more to my liking than that to which they invite me. Unless you turn away their plot from me, I will feel inclined towards them and be one of those who commit sin and deserve blame, or those who do deeds of the ignorance. So his Lord answered his invocation and turned away from him their plot. Verily, he is the all-hearer, the all-knower. And Yusuf والسلام, prayed to Allah Almighty that prison is more liking than what they are inviting him towards the sin. So Zulaikha convinced her husband that to safeguard her honor, it is better that Yusuf should be cast into the prison. Otherwise, she would not be able to control herself and to safeguard the prestige of Yusuf والسلام. And Chief Minister Aziz Misr knew that Yusuf was absolutely innocent, that it was not proper that an innocent man should be put behind the bars. But he was left with no choice, and to safeguard the Yusuf's honor and to further to stop this affair, he was left with no choice than to send the Yusuf to prison. And with a heavy heart, the chief minister sent Yusuf والسلام, to prison. And in Quran, the story goes on that the prison was the third test of Yusuf والسلام. As you have already know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed Yusuf والسلام the ability to interpret dreams. He was a master in this, that he used it to interpret dreams. This was an extraordinary gift given to him by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the Quran goes on to say that there were two people who were in the prison with Yusuf والسلام. One was the cupbearer, the other was the king's cook. They sensed that Yusuf was not a common criminal, for an aura of piety glowed on his face. And they told him their dreams, and Quran goes on to say is that Yusuf والسلام interpreted their dreams, and while he was in the prison, the king also had a dream, and nobody was able to interpret it. And then Quran goes on to tell that Yusuf والسلام interpreted the dream of the king. Then he became one of the important personality in the cabinet of king, and Yusuf والسلام was honored with the affairs of the state, and he was released from the prison. And Quran goes on to say then Yusuf والسلام and his brothers and his father, they united as per the scheme of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here we are going to stop this and come with a next story about about Musa alayhi salatu wasalam in next session. Till then, fi amanillah ila liqa.